Let us call to order the meeting of the Cabell County Commission at the courthouse, third floor commission chambers. Regular commission session Thursday, September 23rd, 2021 at 10 a.m. or slightly thereafter. Begin with a prayer and the pledge. Let us pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, as every day we should and we must give you thanks for all the blessings that you have given us. We would ask that you would guide and direct us to do that which is your will. Give us the strength and the courage to do, and all of which we ask in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think somebody moved his table back. Anyhow, first item on the agenda would be to approve the regular commission agenda for September 23, 2021. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next would be to approve the minutes of the regular commission meeting of August the 12th, 2021 as amended.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Next would be to approve the erroneous assessments, land consolidation, split tickets, probate documentation from the county clerk's probate office.
Move
Motion?
to approve.
It's been moved, seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. It's approved. And next would be to approve purchase orders number 22-105267 through number 22-105480. Pay jackets, monthly payments to Fifth Third for fuel card purchases, handwritten checks to Unum, $8,627.60, and Guardian for $21,020.30.
So moved.
Been moved, seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is approved. According to our sheet of those who have signed up, no one signed up. Is there anyone who is not on the agenda that would have anything to say to us? Nice to have you all with us. We'll proceed then. Item number 2109-23-215. It is a notice of contest regarding the estate of Jeffrey E. Paul.
Mr. Riker is here. Is that your client?
It is, Your Honor.
Would you both come forward?
You all are aware Mr. Watson is the county attorney and gives us advice,
He knows.
some of which we take and some of which we probably don't.
Gentlemen, I have a major concern about this particular matter. Your client is the administrator of the estate.
Well, he was, and they backed it out of the system, as I understand. There's some confusion where we qualified, and I thought probably the commission would want to handle the notice of contest, which was timely fashion by farming it out to a fiduciary commissioner. But then the probate office understood, they received instructions that that was not the proper course, and that his qualification as administrator should be basically withdrawn. So that was withdrawn, and so we're back here with the notice of contest pending and understanding the most recent instructions were to, in fact, qualify him. So you'll have to go through that process again. That's the last status we have.
Okay, let me explain my position. The father, as an administrator, is a fiduciary. And by definition, a fiduciary is a person or organization that acts on behalf of another person or persons, putting their client's interests ahead of their own. My recommendation, Mr. Riker, is to have your client not be appointed and have the sheriff, because then he could go forward, since he's trying to contest the will, and the will says specifically they don't want his father to have anything. So he is, as a fiduciary, is in fact challenging the will that he's supposed to have control over. So consequently, I think in the interest of everybody, he should not be the fiduciary, and let the sheriff be the fiduciary, and then you all could proceed with the contesting of the will.
May I respond?
Yes.
We filed a notice of contest because by its very nature, the notice of contest says it's not a valid will and it requires the proponents to prove the will. Therefore, to give deference to it in advance of hearing the notice of contest, and to say that he's opposed to that because here's the will, but that's why we filed a notice of contest. And any interested person can file a notice of contest. So he's obviously an interested person because he's the next heir at law. Now, all this means is simply that if he's accepted or not accepted, maybe a curator is the answer for this. But we basically feel like the notice of contest is going to require any proponent out there to prove the will in solid form. And that will require probably the fiduciary commissioner to set that up and have a notice run. We don't even know if somebody will come forward as a proponent of this will. That would have to be resolved over on one side, but there's other matters that have to go on. And as an interested person, as the next heir at law, along with the mother of the decedent, I don't see any problem with them doing that. Even a creditor can become a personal representative of the state, even though that's inherently seems like a conflict. So we think as the next heir at law, he's able to qualify as administrator, while the notice of contest will ferret out whether that's even a valid will or not.
But if he is a potential beneficiary, now, under the will as it's presently written, he is not. And then if the will is in fact deemed invalid, then okay, it becomes intestate, and he, as the father, along with any other named people, could be a beneficiary. But how can he challenge a will when he has the responsibility, as defined by what a fiduciary is, to do everything to make the will valid?
Well, he's bonded and he can't finish the estate until he goes through the requisite procedures. He's bonded to perform the task of any personal representative, marshal the assets, identify the assets, make an
I understand all
appraisal,
that.
deal with claims. By that time, the notice of contest presumably would have been determined whether this is a valid will or not. There's plenty of time for that. If in fact it is a valid will, steps can be taken at that point in time to recognize it as such, but it is not now. We doubt it will be. So when you say, how can he, is in this conflict, I don't see a serious conflict. He will continue to man the ship. He's already gone through the steps before his power was revoked to begin contacting creditors and interested people and institutions. So he qualifies, the job can be attended to while the notice of contest is adjudicated by presumably the fiduciary commissioner, subject to your all's approval. I don't see any inherent conflict.
Do you not think it would be in the best interest of everybody concerned to have him step aside and have the sheriff be the administrator of the estate?
I don't know that the sheriff is crying out for more business like this, and I think we can probably do it just fine, Your Honor. I don't, Bill, I think that basically, what we have is, no more conflict, as I said, than the well-recognized ability of the creditor of an estate and the decedent to become the estate's personal representative. So no, sir, I don't. I think we can do it officially until that notice of contest is determined once and for all, and I doubt a proponent steps forward.
I agree. If you can't locate the named beneficiary, that young lady, do you have any idea what the value of the estate is?
It would, right now, depending on whether there may be an insurance policy at issue or not, it could be between $0 to $100,000.
Okay, because, if it's not, if you can't locate, but somebody, and whoever the administrator is, or the fiduciary, is gonna have to try to contact that beneficiary.
We may have to resort to publication.
Yes, you
And he was
will.
fully bonded, and that, even though that bond has been revoked now, it can be replaced again. His bond's been ready to go a new bond if he's qualified again. So if he's bonded, for the performance of his job, no, Bill, I don't see how there's a serious conflict there.
But you keep saying, you talk about a creditor, and we all know after 30 days, a creditor could come forward.
Yes.
However, a creditor is not a beneficiary, which he will be if the will is deemed invalid. And yet he has the duty and responsibility to see that the will is deemed valid and to protect the interest of the named beneficiary.
Well, I would disagree. he basically has to stand by and see what the adjudication process will determine as to whether it's even a valid will or not. And that will come out in the wash in those hearings with the fiduciary commissioner. Meanwhile, he's got a tenantship, he's sworn to perform duties as personal representative, he's bonded. So no, frankly, I don't see a conflict or a problem. By the time there's any distribution, we will have determined whether there's a will or there is not. And again, as I say, I don't see this as nearly the conflict the law endorses with the creditor being over the estate.
Well, we could refer this to a fiduciary commissioner, but my recommendation to that fiduciary commissioner is that this gentleman here is to step aside. It's up to the fiduciary commissioner. He can look at the law and the facts surrounding this particular matter, and we'll go from there.
We don't have a serious problem with that because we figured that's where it was headed anyway, if for nothing else but to have a hearing on the notice of contest, which requires a probate in solemn form if you file that before it's admitted to probate. We knew we were headed to a fiduciary commissioner anyway, in all likelihood. So that's fine, if you're gonna add that extra task to him to find, for the fiduciary to find if he's a worthy candidate to be administrator.
All right? That would be my recommendation.
I have a question. The insurance policy that's referenced in this handwritten will, it says that there's a life insurance policy with the State Farm Insurance agent in North Carolina. Who's the beneficiary stated on that policy?
I do not know, we do not believe that policy is any longer in force. I'm referring to another policy that was discovered that may be payable to the estate. But we don't believe that policy.
Who would be the beneficiary on any policy?
At this time, we believe it's best we can determine the situation now. The policy we believe is in force would now be payable to the estate, for which you would be bonded, and then we would take it from there on, whether there's a valid will or not, to determine who the ultimate distributee would be of the estate. When you have a failure of a designated beneficiary, frequently, the policy has to be poured simply into the decedent's estate. And so the policy we think has been in place since that one expired, we think is probably payable to the estate now. And he'd be bonded for that, and ultimately the person who's determined to be the proper beneficiary of the estate, will or no will, would probably come into the net proceeds. Have I explained that clearly enough?
Yeah, I'm just wondering though why there wasn't a beneficiary stated if there's a policy mentioned in this handwritten will.
Well, at the time in 2014, we had no reason to doubt that that policy wasn't in place. It just so happens that we believe he got another policy later in life between 2014 and his death. And with that one, as probably with the case with the State Farm, if you don't have a designated beneficiary, which the one we think is enforced did not, it usually is payable into the estate. So that's the one asset that might be in the estate for which we bonded ourselves. That's the best we know right now, pending further investigation, Madam Commissioner. I hope, we deal with this stuff all the time. If I speak rapidly or you need me to explain something further, please let me know. But we think ultimately the present life insurance policy is going to be the major asset of the estate. And, you know, whose will or no will ultimately determine the taker of the net proceeds.
Do I understand that both of you, Eldon to the side for the moment, is agree that that we should refer this to a fiduciary commissioner?
The only difference we have is, I think ultimately whether it's a will or a valid will or not a will, in a probate solemn form, probably needs evidence, and that's where we both agree it should head to a fiduciary commissioner, unless you all want to hear yourselves. The other issue about whether he can qualify in the meantime just to be getting routine things done is what we differ on. I'm thinking he's a worthy candidate to simply be tending to the chores like somebody should. He's bonded while that notice of contest is pending. Now, Bill wouldn't even go that far, as I understand his argument. I don't see an inherent conflict or problem with that. He's bonded, he's the next heir at law. The next heirs at law are often favored as personal representatives when you have to pick one. I don't see that problem, so that's our difference.
From personal knowledge, I wouldn't have any problem with him serving without bond, but that's just, you know.
As administrator,
Yeah.
he has to bond.
Right,
post
well,
bond.
yeah.
He has to do that by law,
Sure.
and we do it, and he did it before until the rug was pulled out, and we would have to do it again, and we're prepared to do it again. We don't want to post a bond.
My concern obviously is, it's in his best interest that the will is deemed invalid, because the will says that he is not to inherit anything, specifically makes reference my father is not to get anything. So how can he, in my opinion, be a fiduciary trying to, whether he's bonded and can start doing things as far as noticing creditors or trying to locate the named beneficiary? It just seems to me that we would be all better served to have someone who his hope is that the will's deemed invalid. Yes, it is, because otherwise he doesn't inherit.
Well, that may be, but it wouldn't be the first time there's ever been someone who might be disappointed with what they might be said to get from an estate, has had to serve out the tasks of being personal representative and be under bond. So he's bonded to carry out his duties, bonded. He's the next heir of law. He is the decedent's father. Now, to simply carry this out until the fiduciary commissioner can determine in the notice of contest whether it's a valid will or not, I don't see the major problem in that. I mean, we may professionally differ, so I think it's up to the commission to determine whether he could otherwise be qualified as he once was, being the next heir at law and under bond, rather than foist it on the sheriff as opposed to the decedent's next heir at law.
What's the time frame for the determination of the validity of the will?
As soon as if you're gonna send it to the fiduciary commissioner, as soon as they can set that hearing up, they'd be the hearing officer, they'd set the hearing, they'd have the notice, we'd have to post deposits and match our schedules up and have the hearing as soon as they could have one, and then report back the recommendations to you.
Is it within months or year?
No, no.
It should be weeks or
Days.
months
Yeah.
tops.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
Eldon, do you follow all this?
Yes, sir.
Good.
So my recommendation is to refer it to a fiduciary commissioner,
To which you
and I will.
agree with,
We partially agree that for the notice of contest on the validity of the will, it needs a hearing, that's what your fiduciary commissioners are for. We disagree as to whether Eldon is qualified to immediately serve as administrator until such time as he would be deemed to be disqualified. And the will, I might mention, doesn't even name the personal representative. We know there's lines we can't cross, and he's bonded not to cross those.
so we have really two issues, Bill, is that correct? Whether,
Yeah.
yeah, we contest the will and whether
He
Eldon
he
can
should
continue
serve.
to do what he's
Right.
doing,
I agree,
right?
yes.
And it's
that-
up,
And we'll let the fiduciary commissioner make a recommendation to this commission as to those two issues.
We would hope that you would frame a motion that would qualify him and then refer it out if you want to for the hearings on the will, then that's just our position, Mr. Commissioner.
So then he would become a curator? Is that
No,
what
don't
the?
have- he would become the administrator. You have an option of appointing a curator, just as a temporary head of the estate, if you so choose. That's a very temporary ad hoc, way that usually is done, when you have initial serious problems and it's too soon to qualify an administrator, but I guess you could do it. But I would hope that we could just qualify him as administrator, let him post the same bond and proceed.
So what duty does a curator have that the administrator, or doesn't have that the administrator has?
It basically is a way of having someone over the estate until an administrator can be qualified. And, for example, when you have a death without a will, and you have others besides the surviving spouse, there's often a 30-day wait until someone can qualify an administrator. Sometimes they're really serious matters, so you all can appoint a curator to attend to that. So it's a very temporary post. I'm not saying you
Are
can't
there
do that.
limitations on their duties between the administrator and the curator? Like the ability to spend any money, or,
I don't
mean,
think
what
there's-
is,
I think the
what's the
distinctions
difference?
are pretty, like I said, it's probably the same parallel powers as far as I know, and I think Bill would probably agree with me.
And the curator is just a temporary Band-Aid to the estate if there's issues going on, but it's a temporary thing, and
so it can be more easily revoked, or what?
no, not, their position, they don't think the will's valid, and that's the notice of contest. But again, the only way this gentleman inherits if the will is deemed invalid. But yet the writer of the will says, I don't want my father to inherit anything. That's his specific intent, so stated. So my point is, that being the case, the best way to go forward is to have someone else be the administrator of the estate. Bonding, sheriff doesn't have to post bond, for instance, and go forward and notify this, there's one named female who's the beneficiary. We don't know where she is, to my knowledge. So there's gonna have to be a publication in the newspaper. And whether if she doesn't come forward, then they're gonna prevail because the will, the contest of the will not be challenged by her, who would be the one that would challenge their position. She's saying the will is valid, and I want to be the beneficiary. So,
And the commissioner may reply to, again, that's gonna be the situation no matter what. There will have to be a hearing, this lady will get notice the best we can, it may have to be by publication, that if she wants to, we don't even know what her position is, we don't even know if she's aware of this gentleman that she had a relationship with some 7 years ago, if she wants anything to do with it. That'll come out in the wash in those hearings when we finally have a hearing on the will itself. But to answer your question, I think basically think of the curator as a very temporary administrator, and they're basically replaced when someone can qualify and be appointed as administrator of the estate. So I don't think there's much distinction in their powers, it's just that they basically serve until an administrator can be qualified. Did that answer?
It did, yes, thank you.
What really is there to administrate? I mean, I think you said you don't know, can't find the named beneficiary, and you don't know if there's any assets in the will.
This policy
To the
that we
best of
believe
your
exists,
knowledge.
this policy we believe exists, and we're still investigating now, may well ultimately be payable to the estate. And if it's payable to the estate, I fully agree with Bill, that would be Mr. Paul and his ex-wife, the mother of the deceased, proceeds on that distribution. We don't know, we haven't got there yet. That's what we're bonded to find out and proceed for. We'll either go that direction with that outcome for the estate, or we'll go with the will, if this document's upheld, it keeps saying the will, but it's under contest, it hasn't even been proved yet. So we'll either go A or we'll go B, as to how the proceedings turn out. Till then, you'd be bonded, he's the next heir at law.
Was this will or non-will, was it recorded somewhere? I don't see that it was.
No,
That's the whole point, Ma'am. See,
Notarized.
it was left, he knew his duty. See, you're basically an outlaw, you commit a crime if you don't produce a document, looks like it may be a testamentary document, it's your duty to bring that into the clerk, so he did that. So they were holding that to analyze it, you don't get handwritten wills every day. And while that was pending, we took advantage of filing a notice of contest. That means the proponents then have the burden of approving it as a good will, instead of it going on to the circuit court where you have these incredible burdens to prove it's not a good will. So we played that card. So it never was recorded, it was simply turned in lawfully by the people who had custody of it, Mr. Paul, to say, here it is, I found this, it's my duty to put it on the table. But then we filed a notice of contest saying, we want to play our rights and say, if anyone vouches as this being his legitimate last will and testament, we want them to come forward and prove this will. That's what's called a probate in solid form. So that's why it's not recorded. It was left at the office but not actually admitted to probate yet. Before it could be, we filed a notice of contest. That's why we'll have to go in front of the fiduciary commission for hearings.
Are there any duties for Mr. Paul to perform while you went through all this hoops?
Sure. If perhaps we have a series of problems that we could have a hearing right away, to be determined that the insurance policy benefit is payable, it's payable to the estate, he'd have to take it, put it in the estate account, consistent with his bond, and hold it there until we have a determination on the will.
But that's something the sheriff could do equally as well.
We could, ma'am, but I'm not saying you don't, that couldn't be done. I'm just saying it's obviously favored to go with the next heir at law, but we do know that cares and he does want to come forward. Heirs at law are preferred for appointments of this type all the time, so we're saying we would apply to be that.
well, the point is, though, our responsibility is to try to give credence to the dictates of the will. just like you don't want to disenfranchise a voter when we have elections and so forth. And consequently, it's stated specifically in this will that he does not want his father to inherit anything.
Well, I beg to differ, that we're calling it a will. and
Well,
it's
let's
not
just
even
assume
under
it's a
contest.
will.
Well, let's don't assume it's a will, because we've got a notice of contest on the table, and it's gotta be proven before we start accepting, that's what the decedent said, that's what the decedent wanted. It's just a piece of paper right now, Bill. It's just a piece of paper.
Well, we know what
And
it says.
We'll have a chance to give her a chance to come in and prove that will in solemn form. That's what the law is.
I understand
The law
that.
doesn't say presume any document you turn in, any kind of rag you turn in is automatically a will if in the face of a notice of contest until it's proven.
It's a holographic will and it meets all the requirements of being a valid will.
On its face,
Yes.
arguably, we could say that, but are you presuming how the notice of contest is gonna turn out already without a hearing?
No, we
Well,
don't know
then
that.
let's don't.
Paul, if we determine to send this to the
Fiduciary commission.
yeah, the commissioner, is that going to delay anything? I mean, are we in a hurry, or
No,
are
that
we,
shouldn't matter.
do we want to do it right, or whatever right may be?
I don't think Bill was at the desk when he had to deal with initial issues. When he first was appointed and he received his certificates of appointment, he already had some contacts out with places that need to be informed of the death or inquiries about assets. I think there may have been a safe deposit box. Things like that can't go on. I'm not saying they're going to be crucial or fatal, but the business of the estate will be frozen until we can have this hearing in front of the fiduciary commissioner. To my way of thinking, say, with the notice of contest on the table, somebody ought to do something. If the law favors errors of law all over the place, but I can't tell you there anything fatal is going to happen immediately. I'm not going to represent that to you. We don't have any immediate wolf at the door, but things need to get done.
Do we have any pull with a fiduciary commissioner to move this to a head of a list or anything?
Well, I'm sure he, we got two of them,
Yeah,
and whoever it's assigned to, we can advise him to expedite hearings, and he will notice the parties, but in the meantime, you're gonna have to try to somebody's gonna have to contact this named beneficiary, the young lady. Because how is she gonna respond to your notice of contest?
Every notice goes out to people, but in her case, not recognizing her as a estate beneficiary or legatee yet. When he sets the notice of contest hearing to determine if it's a valid will or not, then I'm sure we'll have to give notice, and that'll be by every means we know possible, and publication will probably be one of those means,
Right.
if that answers your question, Commissioner Butler.
Should I ask a question?
Yes?
After all this discussion, I'd like to hear from Bill Watson as to what his recommendation is to the commission at this time.
It is my recommendation, Mrs. Cartmill, that it goes to a fiduciary commissioner, but I have a big concern about the father being the administrator of the estate when it's his best interest to have the will deemed invalid, and that's not what a fiduciary does. So I would want the fiduciary commissioner to address that issue as to whether he should in fact serve or not.
May I respond? It's getting a little wearisome to hear that there's a presumption that my client's going to do something to the detriment of the estate or somehow undercut improperly assets of the estate that might otherwise be ultimately adjudicated in favor of this lady or somebody else. He's not a crook, we're bonded, and he's not going to do anything improper. And just to say he's positioned to have an adverse interest to her, we might agree with that. That doesn't mean the estate's in jeopardy of being mishandled by Eldon Paul.
But I don't think that any decision made here today would indicate that there may be something nefarious that he might do.
I'm perceiving that, I'm sorry.
I think we tried to, when we make these decisions, there's two sides, and you try to work through them, and you try to get like the level playing field and have someone outside of, the issue have a
do either one of you other commissioners
Partial.
have a motion?
Yes, I move that we give this to a fiduciary commissioner with the instruction that it be expedited as much as possible.
And And that's one of the issues, am I correct?
But in the past, can I ask a question of our council? In the past, when we refer it to a fiduciary, we don't sit here and pick and choose who the fiduciary might be. We just send it to a fiduciary.
That's correct.
Is that not
Right.
correct? So we only
That's right.
have one decision to make here
Right.
today. Is that correct?
Unless we allow Eldon to continue to serve, is that
Yes, I
correct?
mean, I would anticipate that it would ultimately go to the fiduciary commissioner to hear the notice of contest on the validity of the will. The only issue is, may he continue to, can he requalify as administrator of the estate? And I don't know if this motion means you can send both issues to the fiduciary commissioner and it stays on ice until you can hear it again or what. That's what I think I've heard, but that's between you and the council.
Yeah.
I think we've done that in the past though, haven't we?
But,
Just make one, we've only made one determination. We send it to a
Well,
fiduciary and
but-
let them work it out.
but this has a particular issue that we don't normally see. So
So it requires two decisions?
I would think that I think from your all's point of view, we would like to hear from the fiduciary commissioner as to whether he thinks it's in the best interest of the estate to have Mr. Paul serve as the administrator.
But the fiduciary that we would recommend this to would have the ability to determine who's gonna be the administrator temporarily, correct?
Well,
We would
he-
just send it to them and then they make that determination.
They'll make a recommendation to us as to, yes, he should continue to serve, and nobody, and I will tell you, Mr. Paul, no reflection on you as a person. It's just my personal opinion that it'd be so much easier if the sheriff was doing it and then you could proceed as just the proponent of trying to get the will deemed invalid. And I would like the fiduciary commissioner to make a decision as to whether he thinks, one, he will address both issues and make a recommendation back to us. And I think in the meantime,
That's what we typically
there's no reason that, there's nothing going on that's so vital that, that it has to be done right now as the administrator. I think we just keep it in limbo until the fiduciary commissioner makes a recommendation.
If this goes to the fiduciary commissioner, and for him to decide on both of those issues,
Mhm.
and something would come up, you attorneys could pick a number of things, I'm sure, that needed immediate attention, what would happen?
Well, it's based on the facts in this particular case. I don't see anything happening that would cause that to be an issue.
No, I don't either from what we've said, but should something come up, could Eldon be,
Then he could be either that or you appoint a curator.
and he could be a curator?
Well, I've got to ask, if something comes up and he comes into the office saying, I would like to be appointed curator, I'm next of kin. I can show you cases this high where the law prefers the appointment of next of kin. We're gonna face this same issue where it says, well, he's fiduciary of the estate, and he's got that inherent clash, conflict with what's in the will that hasn't been proven yet. I don't know if we'll have the same roadblock if he comes in and has to be curator.
We
The
could
reason,
always,
the reason you guys have all those degrees.
Well, to me, as I said, and if Bill disagrees with me, that's fine, but there is quite a body of authority saying when you have to make an appointment of somebody over the estate and you don't otherwise have direction, and again, this will is under contest, you prefer heirs at law and the next heirs at law. The next heirs at law is this gentleman's mother and father. Well, here's the father. So that's what the law says you prefer. Instead of a gut feeling that, gee, this doesn't sound good, and I would prefer, and I think it'd be a better idea to go this way. And I defer to Bill the years of experience, but this is what the law basically says, and he's under bond. So that's been our concern.
I personally see no problem with him continuing to serve, but Nancy, does your motion cover, or does Bill's advice cover both of those issues? That
I think so, and it's been my opinion in the past that the fiduciary commissioner looks at everything. That's why we send it to them. We want them to look at every aspect of it, and then come back with a recommendation to the county commission.
Okay, we have a motion then.
If the motion is to send it to the fiduciary and let it all get sorted out for recommendation to us at a future date, then I would second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. We've certainly discussed it enough. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And can I abstain because of personal knowledge with Mr. Paul and his whatever?
Sure, you
Yeah.
can do that.
I'll abstain.
And we will have the fiduciary
Well, then
commissioner
if we all abstain.
to expedite it.
Does the commission want a separate order on this, or just have it reflected in your minutes?
Minutes, fine. It's all right with you.
Yeah, that's fine. That'd be all right. Minutes will reflect it.
I mean-
I'll watch for the body of the motion in writing. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sorry we had to have a law school lesson this morning to everybody else, but we'll move on. Item number 216, Mike Davis, Cabell County Emergency Response Center Director, regarding the update on addressing and texting to E911.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I appreciate your interest in supporting these projects in the past, and glad for the opportunity to bring you guys up to date on what's going on. The addressing project is going as we imagined our schedule would go. Glenwood was the first thing that was ever done outside of the actual project we're working on now, but that's been completed for quite a while. Salt Rock is complete. We actually, if you recall in our planning sessions, we had an issue about letters being sent out. We actually did that work, and it went quite well. Staff did a great job. We have a call taker that's working every day to answer questions from people that have had their addresses changed. That's working very well. And we have a change of personnel. One of our captains on the department was in charge of the field work on this mapping project, and he has taken a position with the state police at the new communications center in St. Albans, I believe. We replaced him with an old employee that we've had that served for a short period of time as the deputy director at Putnam County 911, and he has a lot of knowledge on mapping and addressing, so he's been, we didn't miss a beat by replacing him. Branchland is complete, Parkinson, Cabell County. Letters have been sent out there. Culloden is done, but we're waiting on the post office address manager to get back to our contracted company and confirm everything is okay before we can send those letters. We expect to do that probably within the week. So we have moved forward. We've already got the edit sheets, which is the first step in a zip code for Milton, which will be our next one, considerably larger. We've got a fair amount of work to do in the county portion of the Milton zip code, and then there is some work to be done in Milton that we have to coordinate with the mayor of Milton, because Atlas did not do any work in municipalities as our contracting company. For instance, Route 60's got several names in the middle of Milton, so that has to be changed, and the mayor's aware of it, and we're gonna work together on those things. We continue to give new addresses daily to new businesses, new residents, so forth. It's a little interesting because we're giving them the new address if they're in a zip code we haven't got to yet. So their address may not exactly fit everybody else's perfectly, but it will be perfect when we get to their zip code. They won't have to rename it a second time. The next issue we've been dealing with this is signage, because obviously street signs have to be changed. Department of Highways will handle any signs on a highway maintained roadway. However, we have to help with the ones that aren't. There are a lot of roads that have new names, or a lot of roads that did not have a name that qualify as an actual roadway. So we've done some research on that. That's gonna cost us about $100 a sign. Has to be state mandates on how both to manufacture and install. This obviously will help the residents as well, because someone that now has 2 or 3 maybe homes on a small road has to have a name, they don't have the resources to put that name out there, and we're gonna handle that for them. We've also learned that all of our data at the end of our project will be turned over by Atlas to Google. That's been a question we've been getting from a lot of places, because most people use Google for their mapping on their cars and their deliveries, and our addressing is not correct. It hasn't been, of course, that's the reason for the project. But when it's all said and done, we're gonna turn that over to them. So there is a question whether we'll turn it over to other groups, such as, I believe, TomTom, some of these other agencies, because they actually charge people for that service. Google does not, so we're transferring that as soon as we're done with the project. As far as the texting project, it's finally ready to go. We've had a lot of compatibility issues between our provider, which is Frontier, and our manufacturer of the phone system, which is Vesta, and now owned by Motorola. They promised a lot of things, but it's taken quite a while to get those. One issue that we've had is we need to be able to send an outgoing text to a person. Usually we would handle that for like someone that hangs up on a phone call or an abandoned phone call. And it would be automatic. It would go out to them and say, you have a problem type thing. That's not available to us. We've argued about this because it was promised to us. It is being tested as we speak, but we decided to go ahead and roll out because it has no impact on emergency operations. A person will still be able to text us with an emergency call, and we'll still be able to respond with a text and actually speak to them. So our plan was to get it out immediately. The only thing, and we still are, but we have to send letters to the carriers. The carriers will then work their end of it so that it works properly and seamlessly, but they have 6 months to comply with that. We expect that to happen very quickly, and we're going to pressure them obviously to do that. We have been hesitant to roll it out because we wanted all the components to be in place. And the one area that we are liable for as a public safety organization is if you offer something and then take it back, it is a liability. So we didn't want to roll something out that wasn't ready to go. We're training our personnel as we speak, and it's a very simple training, but we're going through all our people so they know how to operate the equipment. And then we have to educate the media, or the public through the media, excuse me, because obviously it's going to be a faster response if you pick up the phone and call us, and it will be through a text, just by the nature of what you're doing. However, there are instances where a text would be extremely useful as opposed to a phone call. So we're working under the premise, call if you can, text if you can't, because it is much, much faster. I'd like to add 2 more things if I could, 2 other little projects. I'll be very short, but we've been working on a project since before the dementia, that is the project, excuse me, before the pandemic. We worked with Huntington Hospital Senior Services, and we met with all the first responders, and we decided that we needed to find a better way to deal with patients with dementia that are wandering, that we locate, or that are missing. And with the hospital changes and layoffs and things of that nature, the project came to a complete halt. But we decided at our center that this was a worthwhile project, so we put all of our, rather than just service the data deposit, we decided we'd take the project over. So my staff has done a really good job, and we have developed a secure website in which law enforcement and the 911 center will be able to access the information. The law enforcement can access it from the field on their computers. A person can fill out an application on this site and list their mother, all the information about this person, descriptions, photographs, where they're likely to go if they wander off, things of that nature. So if one of Gordon's personnel finds someone out here wandering, we'll have that information available if people that register for it, of course. But we'll also be able to look on a map and say they find someone here, we'll be able to look in this general area to see who's registered that has a person that may have wandered off, so that we can help find that person quicker, and vice versa, if somebody's a missing person. So we're pretty happy with that. We're meeting with law enforcement so that they know how to operate the equipment and access it. We're also meeting with all the organizations that deal with dementia patients and Alzheimer's and so forth, so that they know this is out there and available. Our website is CalhouncountyDementia.com. I've got a brochure for you that I was going to leave with you. And lastly, we are still working with the child safety seats at the 911 Center. This is Child Passenger Safety Awareness Week. It's always a week for something. We went from 2 to 5 nationally certified technicians. We have a large inventory of car seats that are available for every age child. This is meant for emergency needs and low-income families, and we're probably one of the biggest distributors in the state right now. We install, we check them, we give them away. We had a install today at the Alzheimer's School, but the technician got sick on the way to work, and we had to cancel that one, but we're going to reschedule. We're averaging 24 installs a month, so we're
How many?
24. We're putting car seats in the cars. And where this service comes in real handy, besides low-income families, is if someone, for instance, travels through our communities in a car wreck, and they still need to get home, they get a rental car, they don't have a car seat, we can provide one for them. So we're going to be at the Pumpkin Festival shortly with a table with all this information. Hopefully we'll be educating everyone on all these projects, addressing in particular, especially since we're getting ready to start Milton. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I have a question. You mentioned Frontier and Motorola, that you're working with them on the texting.
Yes, ma'am.
And you said something's not available. I was just trying to take notes. It says that you can receive text and you can send text, but what's the holdup again with Motorola? and-
What we can't do is initiate or generate a texting call, excuse me, from our center unless someone is called in to us. If someone calls in or texts in, we can respond, but we can't just send one out. It's just not in the works right now. That's only used, like I say, for someone that maybe we get a hang-up call, which we now make a phone call and find out, okay, did you hang up the phone? Is there a problem? We do that on any hang-up call or abandoned call, as we call it. This would allow us, as part of the program, to actually send a text, which would just make it easier on our center and everyone else. And it's being used across the country that way. It's just not available to us for some reason for compatibility. And we're not real happy about that, but we're fixing it. Again, it is being tested with our system as we speak.
It'll be soon though, you think?
I think so. That component, we're ready to roll the other thing out, and we're going to. As soon as the carriers tell us that they're set, because we send the letters to them and we have to wait, because we can't tell the public it's there if they can't actually do it. So, and again, they have 6 months to comply with that, but we're gonna be pressuring them, and we think they'll be much faster.
Another question on the, you said Salt Rock's complete. Is that with the address changes or just, I think in a previous conversation, you said Salt Rock was completely done.
Yes.
That's what the address is. With Branchland, Culloden, and the county portion of Milton, are those just the letters going out, or has any of those been
Culloden,
readdressed?
everything's complete. Excuse me. Branchland, Salt Rock is complete. The letters have all went out, all the changes made. We haven't put the signage up, of course, because we're still trying to get that one worked out. Culloden is complete with all of our work. It's been sent to the Postal Service and everything else. But they have not returned confirmation to Atlas. And when they do, the letters are ready, we just ship them out. So that'll be immediate. As soon as we expect that, within a week or two.
Do you know about how many addresses you've had to change so far?
No, I do not. I do know there's 25 roads that we're gonna be responsible for putting signs up for at this point. So there's a lot of road changes and name changes.
Have people been understanding?
They've been pretty good, actually. We're pretty happy with the responses. Again, we have a young lady that's answering the phones, and she does a real good job with the customer service side of it, explaining why and so forth. And,
Why
trying to
being that
work-
the state was mandated that this be done?
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yes, ma'am. We make sure we get that in there. But yes, it's going according to plan. Like I say, we're already moved out to get the Edisons from Milton, which is the first thing. Now we do our footwork and checking on the Milton parts, and we work with the mayor, then we submit that as well. And then we're gonna move right on west. as we do, it gets bigger and it's gonna be a little more time consuming.
Thank you.
I've got a brochure, and I put them, everything in a memorandum
I
form.
think Irv had a question.
Yes.
What would be the timeframe, you know, we've had discussions in with the commission
Yes.
about trying to be helpful with the courthouse and
Mhm.
taxpayers. What will be the timeframe when the courthouse will receive this data? And unless I've missed a meeting, I don't know that we've had these conversations, since we talked about Salt Rock.
Yeah,
Would
we
you guys
just-
bring me up to date on where you think we are in the timeline?
Thought maybe, I don't know if they were supposed to send you the information on the Salt Rock Club area or not. They were very small, but you should have gotten the information. I'll check on it. Milton,
I've had zero communication since we talked about this.
there's an atlas may not have sent the data that you're supposed to receive. I'll check on it.
You know, you have understood this before, I mean, that's very critical. If you want tax tickets and stuff to be able to pay people, you better, I mean, it's.
Well, one reason that we've taken a while is because the postal service didn't make the changes. Until they make the changes, nothing gets delivered. So,
And like Mr. Savoni said, we're saying that all of Soft Rock, Ransom, and Cologne is now complete, and we don't have any, I have no data.
okay, that may have been misquoted, then our end of it is complete, and the data may not have been sent to you, but the letters have been sent to the residents, that they have 2 addresses to use for the 1 year and so forth. I'll find out where your data is, though.
And also, when we had discussed that the post office will deliver to the old address for a certain time frame, has that been established?
Yes, 1 year.
1 year. And is that time ticking as we speak? When does that 1 year begin?
As soon as the postal service approves, yes. So Salt Rock.
So we have 3 people now that.
Salt Rock is underway, they were underway first, and then, Cologne is, like I said, it's done, but the post office has not signed off on it yet, so that one's not ticking as of yet. So just Branson, which is a small area.
And did you go with the grid system where it started at a main thing in every 1/10 of a mile?
Yes.
Okay, then does that mean that if I live on Thomas Road, that every single house will get a new number?
On some of those roads, yes.
So that means that every road, every parcel on that road will have to be changed. So I keep coming back
Yes.
to,
Oh, I know.
I would like to know how many addresses need changed, because like the sheriff is very concerned with tax tickets going out to the proper addresses. So we really need,
Okay. I'll see where any of the data is missing right now. But as far as I know, everything should have been set. And then, of course, you haven't gotten it, so there's a problem. I'll track it down. Those are small areas that shouldn't have too big of an impact on you, however, and they have both addresses for the residents that can use and should use. They're told to change to the new address, but at the same time, yes, that's a problem. I'll find out.
We sent out tax tickets this year, I think I got back 10,000. So it's a problem, they ain't changed their address forever. So, it's a problem. We gotta get this thing right. And the sad thing about it is, we have people serving jury duty, fill out a paper, gives Phyllis and them the address or elections. 2 weeks later, we mail them a check and we still get it. So relying on the people to get it right is not gonna be probably a good solution.
I'll find, excuse me, I'll find out your information and I'll get back to the commission as well.
I believe the thought was when we started, it wasn't gonna be easy.
That's
It's not easy.
Communications. Anybody have comments or questions? We thank you.
all right. Thank you.
Mr. Hunt. Next item on the agenda is number 217, a presentation by the Honorable Claude Hunt, Jake Hunt, Workforce, West Virginia, presentation of their audit or whatever comes to mind, I think.
Melissa and I are here to present to you our relationship with you guys, since this is the 20th year, is always an interesting one. You, along with the commissions of Boone, Cabell, Lincoln, Logan, Mingo, Putnam, and Wayne, are our bosses. Except we get the money and then we report to you how we spent it, okay? I apologize for not having the audit, but due to the fact the audit time from the feds have changed 4 times due to illness and whatever other reasons the feds had, that will be forthcoming, and when it does, I'll deliver it so everybody gets their copy. You'll be happy to know. Because within what we operate under, it says the commission interest does not receive funding but has fiduciary responsibility should we overexpend. You'll be happy to know we have a fund that has $200,000 in it to cover that, so I don't think you're gonna have to worry about it. Also, I want to thank Mr. Morgan, who is a faithful recipient at our meetings. And I would love to say that every commission just absolutely shows up to a board meeting excited. I would be telling stories if I said that. But I can honestly tell you that Mr. Morgan participates, and we appreciate it very much. I have given you a booklet of sort of explaining what we do. I just want to cover quickly over the last year, 2 years, a period of time. Unfortunately, as happens when I do a chart, I end up using our scenarios, not what human beings would understand that aren't familiar with the context. But if you will note, over the last 2 years, from July 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2021, we have sent 540 folks to training, which in some cases is college, which in some cases is vocational school, and which in some cases is beautician school. You name it, we have covered. Also, truck driving. Folks, the number of positions have been covered. The supportive service means that if an individual needs, let's use boots as a perfect example, to do the job, and they can't afford to pay for those boots. Well, obviously, we're interested in getting the person to work. That's what we're in business for. Train them and get employment. That's why I always get more excited when somebody gets employed. Because let you guys in on a secret. The fact you train somebody, or as they say, they went off to college or whatever training, does not mean that they will then go to work. One might think that that's the way it works, but it doesn't work that way. So if there's an obstacle we can overcome, we make every attempt to do that. What you see on your list is WBLS, which actually means Work-Based Learning System, which means putting people to work. You will note 361 people, and reimbursement to employer was $1,453,698.91. The 91 cents was my donation. The feds and the taxpayers' donation was $1,453,698. You may say, well, what do you mean you reimburse the employer? What we do is work with the employer, and we take what we call reverse referral. In other words, if you hire someone and they qualify, as I explained to the guy that runs the state program, if he and I are walking down the street and it says hiring and we need a job, we are not going to run to our office in Huntington or somewhere else. We're going to go in and ask the person, hey, do I qualify? How much is paid? So if the employer then refers that individual to us, we're more than happy to treat them because they're in the employment system. So we will reimburse the employer depending on the person's situation. And actually, obviously the person has to qualify. Yes, it's based on family income. unless an individual has been laid off, which on the sheet you got, we will call that dislocated, which is a ridiculous title, but that's the Fed's title for it. I much prefer, since it becomes my job to speak to them every now and then about being being laid off, not dislocated, because I dislike that term. So if you look at the number we put in employment, it was 361. And if you total it all up, we get 1,087 individuals, which I think is amazing considering what we've been through for basically the last 2 years. So I'm very proud of what my staff has done. And if anyone has a question, I'll be happy to answer it. If you've heard as much as you want to hear, I'll turn it over to Melissa to give you an idea of what we do with youth. And I'm happy to report to you, most commissions are happy when I sit down.
Do you network with the chambers of commerce?
Yes.
And so that they can let the business owners know
Yep.
about that?
Yep. And by the way, I forgot to give my favorite plug. The sheriff of Cabell County has worked with us, and we have tried to explain to the other 6 counties how we can assist. But what the sheriff of Cabell County did, just to try to help to save himself, the county money, it has been impressive, and it's a pleasure working with him. And I'm being serious. I told 6 other counties, gave him a call, he can explain to you, because it's like everything else with federal thing. There's a set of regulations, and you can do a lot of things, but you have to do them according to their regulations, not, gee, wouldn't it be a nice idea to help somebody? It never works that way. I always tell folks that federal money is any color but green. So, with that, Melissa, I turn it over to you.
Never know how to follow that, but anyway, okay. One of the programs I'm over is our youth program, our young adult, and that's between the ages of 16 to 24 by the WIOLL. We focus mainly on 18 to 24. That 16, 17 is usually still what we call connected to the public school system. Until that 17-year-old would drop out, if he or she would drop out, then that would be somebody that we would look at. Of course, our goal is to keep them in school, or put them back in school, put them in some form of training. A lot of people like visuals, so this is what I call old school social studies fair, little platform here. And these are 3 tracks that we work with our young adults. Now, I'd like to kind of give you this visual, but I want to put it in your mind. These young people that we work with are coming from families with, let's say, income levels below 20,000 in order to qualify for our young adult program. And this is during our last 2 years during the pandemic of some of these pictures of some of our young adults I'd like to highlight and kind of give you an idea exactly what do we do. Of course, it's advanced training like what he talked about. But advanced training doesn't necessarily have to be a college degree or diploma in that facet. We have several people here on this form, and I just want to go over, and I like to highlight on this young man right here. This was just like 2 years ago that he came to us. So this is during a 2-year period here. His name is Jeremy, and lifestyle for him was pretty poor, I can say that. And fast forward a year and a half, he has a CDL license, he's with the IBEW Union Hall, and he makes $20 to $25 an hour. So that's the kind of thing we can turn around. And people say, well, you're using funding to train these people. Is that all you do? No, you gotta work on the whole young adult. These young adults are coming from some backgrounds that basically self-esteem, thinking that they would never manage and make it to like where their counterpartners. This is another young man here local, and this is the Plug Mount West, as far as the Maritime Academy, if anybody's aware of that program. It's 7 weeks intense training. We have several people that we have sent, especially our young adults, into this training. And employers right now are waiting for these young men and women as soon as they're done with the training. I mean, they go right into a job. This young man here, he had 2 companies looking at him before he could ever get all his certifications completed. So, and he walked away with like a $35,000 to $40,000 job starting out, with a career path of $200,000 if he ever wanted to be a captain. So, We also have this young lady that went to Mount West for paralegal studies, welding, truck driving, just to give you kind of example of some of what our youth these past 2 years have gotten into. To get here local, just to talk about some of the local Cabell County youth, these three right here, I'll highlight on them. This young lady here, that didn't really have any work experience, and that's our job, is to assist and help get that work experience by introducing them to employers where we offset that cost of training. This young lady finally went on to Valley Health, currently working. This young man, Jamil, he's working at a local bakery here under a work experience contract. And what our work experience contract would do for the employer is we reimburse the first 500 hours at 100%. So that offsets the cost of training. Mr. Jamil is working with some of my staff to improve his ASVAB scores, because his goal is to get in the military. This young man here, we have him on a work experience contract with a local employer, and he's working on his GED, and I'll explain a little bit about that. Another thing I'd like to highlight, this is down in Gilbert area. The mayor down there actually assisted and helped this Marshall grad get her first experience, where we actually did the same thing as we did for this young lady, 500 hours. And she helped design their website and some stuff down in the Mingo County area. And just here recently, she now has a job working for a multimedia company making $35,000 a year. Pretty good. I like to highlight on him, Lane. He's one of our participants. He has autism, but he works with Goodwill and he loves his job. But we also work with him on work experience type things and work on the emotional stuff. His parents allow him to come to our work readiness program so he can just kind of keep working on himself. This young man, we have him on a work experience contract here in Cabell County at a federal credit union. This is another situation down in Logan County for Domino Printing. So basically what we're doing is assisting help them with work experience, but offset that cost to employers. One of the big things I'm really, really proud about this is right here. We have several of our young adults come to us that do not have a high school diploma, and that's the stopping point for them. And this is just to highlight on a few examples over the last year and a half. We had, right at 16, it started in last October, and right now, I believe it's 11 has completed. So within 1 year, they have completed. Some of them only had 10th grade credits, just to give you a kind of an idea. This started his military career. This put him at a hotel. This started her medical career. He actually completed, he was workaholic, or I can say that. He completed his high school diploma in 4 years. And then this young lady was a parent, and actually she works full-time now and has an opportunity for a career pathway. So I just want to kind of give you all a visual. I can explain the program, I can use all those terms, WIOA and all this, and everybody's like, I have no idea what you're saying. But when you show pictures and show like where our funding is going, it's going to young individuals to try to like jumpstart. And like I said, this is just over a year and a half. We do this every 2 years. We currently have 81 active and 160 in our program. So our less than a little bit of $1 million has jump-started a lot of people, a lot of young adults' career pathways. Otherwise, who knows where they would be. So just to kind of give you an idea.
I guess the old saying, the proof is in the pudding. Is that the pudding up there that you're?
This is the pudding.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's
And
great.
This was a personal thing for me. I come from an HR background. I met Mr. Hunt 13 years ago. Yeah, you're probably saying, how did I work with him for 13 years? But I became a dislocated worker. I worked at a plant here locally as an HR rep, as an HR manager, shutting down a plant. So I do understand how this money is very, very important as far as to invest in young adults and adults when time of need.
Question. Do you all reimburse for nonprofits, or is it just private businesses?
Does anybody?
So it could be,
Yeah, as
So-
long as the individual qualifies, as long as, yeah.
Balmazar?
well, like, for instance, Green Acres down Route 2, they employ intellectually disabled young people for the
Right.
water treatment plant. Is that something that you all could reimburse them?
Right.
If they
we-
qualify for that
We have
program?
reimbursed a couple of drivers down there. DRS works a lot, Rehab Services works a lot with them too. And basically, we try to keep it to where only one. But yeah, anybody that we can can assist. And that's one of the reasons I like to present to all 7 commissions, because people come in here, you know, you're more aware of stuff in the community. Feel free to give us a call. And what I always try to get people to understand, and again, I'm gonna compliment the sheriff at Cabell. By the way, do you fix speeding ticket? No, okay. But that, you know, when I say this, tell them to call us. And we sit down and talk about the situation and try to figure out how we can assist you. We do not figure out how to say no to you. We're a little different with federal funding. Our idea is,
like that.
since we represent you guys, in reality, in 7 counties, is, hey, we want to assist and do this and let them know that you guys, you know. And the key to that,
Ways that we can make a person eligible for the program.
and we're not beyond referring him to other folks who, with the disabilities.
And a lot of the local employers that we've been working with, as soon as they get a young adult, they call us and say, hey, basically they'll call me, hey, Melissa, I have you an 18 or a 19-year-old, come down here and talk to them. So we get a lot of that. But I'll tell you, the best referral system is actually these kids right here. And they go and tell their actual friends about, because they'll say, well, how'd you get this job making that kind of money? Go down there and talk to Melissa, she'll help you. That's basically what they get told.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
I'm glad you brought, what's his name, with you.
13 years, sir. 13 years.
Somebody has to take care of the elderly. Remember that, sir. One of these days you will be.
Uh-oh.
One of these days.
He keeps telling me he's 27. I don't-
Mr. Morgan, I remember you back when I was in the sixth or seventh grade, when you came in and done the little thing with social studies classes. So I do remember you.
What did you do, Mr. Morgan?
I'm sure it was about good government.
Yes, that's the class.
Nobody's worthless. They can always be a horrible example, and that's the way that goes. Next item would be item number 218, the resolution of the Cabell County Commission regarding reclassifications of Courtney Harper to a full-time paramedic and Jillian Lachey Jackson to a full-time paramedic.
So moved.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next item, 219, would be a resolution, Cabell County Commission, regarding in the matter of resolution authorizing the president of the commission to submit a grant application to the West Virginia Courthouse Facilities Improvement Authority Funding Assistance Program for funds in the amount of $100,000 for repairs to the clock tower and domes.
Move to approve.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next item, 220, resolution, Cabell County Commission in the matter of appointing an audit committee to procure audit services for Cabell County. Have we approved, have we appointed, do we appoint?
The resolution appoints myself, the county clerk, Charlie Atkins, and April Saunders.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 The resolution is approved. Next item is 221, resolution of Cabell County Commission in the matter of pledging of temporary letters of credit by J.P. Morgan Chase National Association, N.A.
Move to approve.
Been moved, seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The resolution passes. Next is a resolution 222, Cabell County Commission in the matter of pledging of temporary letters of credit by West Banco, Wheeling. All in,
Move to approve.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item is a resolution, item number 223. Resolution of the Cabell County Commission in the matter of resolution of participation in cooperation with the West Virginia Local Economic Development Grant Program.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in, have a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Next, item 224 is a letter, a binder, an affidavit from C.N. Zirkle Jr. Sheriff regarding delinquent list of sales, suspensions, and redemptions of the 2020 delinquent real estate taxes.
Something we do every year, we're getting ready for the sale, we'll sell on November 2nd.
Do we have a motion?
I move.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Resolution passes. Next item would be number 225, letter from Irv Johnson, Capital County Assessor, additional compensation, Assessor's Certificate of Compliance, Farm Census of 2021. Motion
Move to approve.
Second.
been moved, seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
The resolution passes. Item number 226, letter from Irv Johnson, Cabell County Assessor, regarding employment of Rebecca Christian as a full-time employee.
Move to approve.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It is approved. Next item is 227, Cabell County Commission right of entry form regarding Supreme Court, Loomis Networks of West Virginia, and upgrade of judiciary's internet access statewide.
This gives this company a right to come on the property and do the upgrades, and it says that if they cause any damage, they'll fix it.
I move to approve.
Been moved and second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 The resolution passes. Next item, 229, is approve updated Cabell County Commission Employment Handbook.
You missed 228.
I would move to approve.
Okay. Yeah, I'll-
Employment.
I've missed 228, so let us go back to 228 first, which is a resolution of the Cabell County Commission regarding employment of Michael Fraley as a maintenance position.
I move to approve that.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. And then we have item number 229. I'll quit making checks until we pass.
I move to approve.
Okay, there were some updates or corrections, I think, made just recently. Is that correct?
The one that we had on the last agenda.
Right.
There were a few typos, and then there were, in the part where it talks about employees not to bring weapons onto courthouse or county property. Prosecutor's office pointed out we should accept out deputies, law enforcement, and other authorized personnel, like the prosecutor.
Okay,
We made that change.
it's been moved.
I had a question. It says,
Second.
it says like the gossip-free workplace. Is that new language, or is it just being readopted? That was there before.
I don't think that was in our old handbook.
Okay. I mean, that's, obviously you have a First Amendment right to say what you want, outside of employment, I mean, or, I'm assuming that the attorney, the employment attorney looked at all that to make sure it was.
They did this handbook. The only thing, and I forwarded to you all when we made those changes, and as far as the weapon and that kind of thing. But yes, our attorney for the risk pool drafted this handbook, and it's been in there since the initial draft she gave us.
Thanks. A second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And last would be item number 230, resolution of the Cabell County Commission regarding state budget revision number 3.
This is a reimbursement on salaries and law enforcement. I think it was just salaries, wasn't it? Yes, on the law enforcement.
Yes, it's mostly that overtime contract stuff. Whether it's school board, AEP, all that.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve?
Been
I'll
moved
second.
and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The resolution passes. The next items before us, with the leave of the commissioners, place on record minutes to be recorded, Pea Ridge Public Service District, regular board meeting of July 12th, 2021. Salt Rock Public Service District progress meeting, July 12th, 2021. Salt Rock Public Service District regular meeting, July 13th, 2021. Salt Rock Public Service District regular meeting, August 10, 2021. Salt Rock Public Service District progress meeting, August 12th, 2021. And other documents to be recorded, Pea Ridge Public Service District Managers and Field Report for June 2021. Pea Ridge Public Service District Balance and Income Sheet, period number 1, ending 2022.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that these be placed on record. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the last item would be Commissioners' Representation Reports, Good and Welfare of Cabell County. And the only thing I know was that our grants manager, our administrator, and myself attended a meeting with the Department of Highways, introducing us to the people who handled the various divisions that they had, and contact numbers, and a program that they have called SWAT, which is not to send a force out to do something to somebody, but I don't have those in front of me because they're what I left at home this morning, but it's a number to call statewide that has to do with if you've got a problem and can't get it fixed, roads or other
I've got a
things.
problem. So, I'll call that number.
Yeah, we'll get you the number. But it was an interesting meeting.
The easiest thing is go on the Department of Highways website.
Yeah.
And it says report a problem. It'll actually allow you to drag a pin to the exact spot where you say there's a pothole or a problem. It's
There's-
actually reported on just the other day after we left that meeting. I tried it out.
Well,
I haven't
SWAT,
checked to see if it's fixed.
SWAT stands for Safety with Action Today,
All right.
and it's got a website and other things.
Yeah.
We'll get you a copy of that.
Thank you. I met with the Marshall University College of Business. They had invited me as a member of the Planning Commission for Cabell County to speak with the students. There's going to be there are three graduate students that have been assigned to the project that we charged them with to look at the roles of the different planning commissions throughout the state, and they're going to give us an update on their findings, I believe, in December.
Anybody else have anything for the good and welfare?
Sorry, I just wanted a moment to clarify something. When I give a report, it'd be good, because I was talking to her, and there was still some questions about our addressing project. Excuse me. The progress that I gave you was basically the work that we're doing in our 911 center. Some of those things, you may have misunderstood that, for instance, Milton, we're not changing addresses in Milton as we speak. Culloden has not changed their address as of yet. We have only done our field work, our edit sheets, and so forth. So we're progressing where we should be, but I know that maybe put a scare into the assessor and the sheriff because of the changes. I did make a call while you all were still in session, and we were under the impression that Atlas, our company, had sent them the data that they needed. We have the edit sheets that we can give them, but it's not the data format that you want. So we're trying to remedy that one for Salt Rock right this moment. But the good news is, I got numbers. Ranchland is probably only 200 address changes. And in Salt Rock, maybe 1,000, maybe a little over. But that is it. That's the total number of changes that we've dealt with so far. Which shouldn't be as bad as you thought, anyway, on what you've been doing. I had worked with you all and so forth in the planning sessions, and we hadn't really met. But I was under the impression we were going to do Salt Rock and see what happened, see what the ending results were, which is what we did. My group was a little rambunctious and we did Branchland with it, and I did not notify the assessor or the sheriff that we were doing that, but I will in the future. But the numbers are much smaller than we thought, so hopefully it won't have the impact. But our end of it is getting accomplished. We're just kind of at the mercy of the Postal Service and so forth, and we need to work the timing out with them for the bigger ones in particular. So just wanted to let you know.
The highways, if I caught what they said, next year should begin construction on an interchange at Culloden, which I didn't realize they were doing. And it will be also next year before they start to work on the Fifth Street Bridge. That's it. If anybody has any comments, if not, we're,
Irv has his hand up.
he does, doesn't he? It's down this hall and on the left. Oh, I'm sorry.
You may have seen the governor roll back the values for the 2022 tax year on personal property. That is a very, very big deal. As you know, with COVID-19, if you looked at the pricing of used vehicles, it's off the charts. State code says that the assessor's office runs the value on July 1st. So we use an NADA program to compute those values. Unfortunately, we've known this since July the 15th of what that looked like. I'm proud the Assessors Association is bringing that to state tax department's attention. Had the governor not done what he did, people's taxes would have went up dramatically on their cars. I'll give you an example. I can bring you some specific examples, but it's not uncommon for a 2 or 3 year old pickup truck to be up as much as $10,000. That meaning that vehicle is worth $10,000 more than it was last year. The public is not used to that. These are depreciating assets. They assume that if they don't buy a new car, that value would go down. They assume that their tax ticket will be less. So we were looking at a situation where every single person pretty much was going to see an increase in that. So the governor did a declaration, I believe it was last Friday, and he ordered the state tax commissioner to use the last year's values. Unfortunately for our office, we are already 12,000 accounts in. These have to be keyed for the sheriff to lay the levy rates down. We are already 12,000 accounts down, and now we have to go back and recompensate all 12,000 accounts. The clerks have kind of had pause with that. However, it's better than every single customer calling us next July the 15th. To give you an example, if you have 10,000, I just pulled up our calculator. If you have a $10,000 increase on your Ford pickup truck, meaning, instead of it being worth 50 grand, now it's worth 60, it's worth 10 grand more. Assessed value is 60%, so that means it's worth 6,000 more assessed. That means their taxes would have gone up $160 on that one vehicle. So you can imagine if people had 2 and 3 newer vehicles, we could easily be seeing people getting tax bills $300 to $500, $600 more on their cars than last year. So that's a big thing. Now, what's still going to happen is people assume when they get their tax bill that it will be less. It's going to be almost exactly the same if they can get a new car. But the general public probably is not going to understand that even though it's the same, they wanted it to be lower, that it might have been hundreds of dollars more. We had one account the other day, the guy had 2 Mercedes and a Jaguar, and he was up as much as $50,000 in pricing. And these prices are real. I mean, I had a friend that just sold his 3-year-old car for what he paid for it. So it is real because the dealerships don't have new cars, so people are looking for 1 and 2-year-olds. But that was a big decision by the governor to do that. So we're working frantically to redo the work that we've been working on those accounts since July. The good news is we just have to go in and recalculate the value. It's not total bad entry, but.
Did he do it by executive order, or how did?
Yes.
Can he do that? I guess. I mean, he did it. I just wonder.
We as the Assessors Association had got a legal opinion and thought that the state tax commissioner had that legal authority, but we knew he wouldn't make that type of decision without it going to the governor. So the governor declared that last Friday. It's my understanding, he said all vehicles, so that includes motorcycles and, I think it's, well, it's including marine data as well, so both motorcycles, cars.
RVs?
You know, I don't know that. I'll find that out. That may have been yours. I know it would include motorhomes, I'm not sure about, trailers without a motorhome. Anyways, that's, another situation due to COVID.
Maybe you could go up on the West Virginia building or whatever they call it now and jump off.
Just jump off that, yeah. Yesterday, I thought of jumping off a couple things, so we went to my aunt's house and ate carbohydrates, and I felt better, so she made me high.
Is it a done deal?
Comfort food.
I thought they were still gonna meet.
What's crazy is the Base Jumpers Association voted that they're not coming, which means no one's jumping. Technically, Bridge Day is still on, but they'll meet next week and probably cancel the whole thing, because Bridge Day is not Bridge Day if no one's jumping, unless you just want to eat a funnel cake, so.
Then come to the pumpkin festival for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you're probably healthier now than you were 20 pounds ago or whatever it is.
My blood pressure's lower and lost weight.
Ready to eat a cheeseburger?
I can eat a lot to get back to my normal weight.
Well, as I say, no other comments. We will sign the papers and then adjourn.
I